reading buddies. This is Maria, the scary story lady, with another scary tale for you from Fright Night's collection by J.B. Stamper. Tonight's spooky tale is Poltergeist. Mariah had always had a wild imagination, so when she moved with her family into an old house in a new town, they didn't take everything she said seriously. At first. But after a while, they couldn't ignore what was happening. Mariah's bedroom was on the second floor, just at the top of a curving flight of stairs. The very first night she slept there, a strange thing happened. She was lying under her sheets and blanket, almost dozing off to sleep. Then suddenly the covers were jerked down to the bottom of the bed. Mariah lay there, shivering and screaming at the top of her lungs. Her parents ran into the room, wondering what had happened. "Something was in here," Mariah stuttered in a shaky voice. "I was lying really quiet, and all of a sudden, somebody pulled the covers off." "Now, Mariah, that's just your imagination at work," her father said. "You probably kicked them off yourself while you were having a dream." "No," Mariah whimpered. "It really happened. I heard a sound on the stairway right afterwards. Something is haunting this house." Mariah's parents soothed her to sleep, but they didn't pay much attention to her story until the next evening. The family was sitting around the fireplace reading after dinner. Mariah was reading a book about ghosts, her eyes getting wider by the minute. Suddenly a weird noise, almost like a mad laugh, came out of the fireplace. Then chunks of soot fell down the chimney, sending a cloud of black smoke into the room. As Mariah and her mother and father jumped up, coughing and choking from the smoke, another laughing sound echoed from the chimney. "I know what it is," Mariah said. "It's a poltergeist, a mean kind of ghost that likes to play tricks and scare people. I just read about them, and I think one lives here." Mariah's father didn't say anything, but he quickly doused the fire and shut the vent to the chimney. Whatever might be up there, he didn't want it to come down into the house. The poltergeist left the family alone for a whole week. Mariah's parents decided that her idea about the house being haunted was nonsense after all. They tried to find other explanations for what had happened with the fireplace. It must have been a squirrel, they said. Then the poltergeist struck again. Late one night, there was a knock on the front door. Mariah's father walked down the stairway to open it, but no one stood on the doorway outside. No one at all. Mariah's father shook his head and walked back up the stairs. As soon as he reached to the top, the knocking started once more on the front door. He walked down again and opened the door. No one was there. But out of the darkness came a mad laugh, and the door slammed shut in his face. Mariah had woken up and seen what happened. She saw the look of fear in her father's face as he climbed back up the staircase. With shaking knees, she crawled back into her own bed, pulled the covers up over her head, and held onto them tightly. All was quiet. Then a tapping started on Mariah's window. At first it was so quiet she thought it must be a tree branch blown by the wind. Slowly the tapping grew louder and louder until it sounded like a desperate animal trying to get into her room. Mariah tried to scream, but nothing came out of her mouth. She huddled under her covers, afraid to look at what might be outside the window. Then suddenly the tapping was inside her room. It started on her closet door, sounding like someone was inside trying to get out. Then it traveled around the room, along the walls, until it came to her bed. Tap, tap, tap. Rap, rap, rap. The sound pounded into Mariah's brain. Soon it was only inches above her head. She screamed. It was the loudest, longest scream her parents had ever heard. They rushed into her bedroom to find Mariah sitting straight up in her bed, her face pale and sweating. Together they heard the mad laugh of the poltergeist fade away outside the window. Mariah refused to sleep in her room any more. Her parents couldn't bring themselves to argue with her. The poltergeist had gotten to them too. The next morning at breakfast, the family decided that they would have to move. No matter how much they liked their new house, they couldn't share it with that wicked poltergeist. It took Mariah and her parents 3 days to pack up all their things they had moved into the little house, but instead of being sad, they all felt happy that they were escaping. Mariah caught herself singing as she filled boxes with her books and clothes. The moving van arrived on Friday and loaded up the family's belongings. That night, Mariah slept in a sleeping bag in her parents' bedroom. Every once in a while she thought she heard strange sounds outside the window and up and down the stairway, but she just squeezed her eyes shut hard and told herself that after tonight she'd never be bothered by the poltergeist again. The next morning the family had their last breakfast in the house and loaded their bags into their station wagon. Mariah sat in the back seat and turned around to look at the house one last time as her father drove down the lane. She raised her hand in a wave to the house and whispered, "Good riddance, you mean old poltergeist." As she turned around to look at the road, a familiar haunting laugh rose from behind her. Mariah heard the poltergeist voice whisper in her ear. "Where are we going?" it asked. That's kind of creepy. So, if you have a poltergeist, I guess, according to this story, now I can't say that it's true or not, but maybe it would just hitch a ride with you. I don't know, but I sure wouldn't want to find out. Would you? Stay tuned for another scary story from the Scary Story Lady. Bye-bye.